Tasty Basic Architect. Yeah, so the house behind me, you can see this is one of the gable ends. This is a farmhouse. We're in New England, Central Mass. Original house behind me, built 1815-ish vintage. So probably took, you know, maybe a little longer than a year or so to build, but yeah. So 210 years ago, somebody was laying brick on that wall. One of the things that I recently learned, you can see the two S-shaped irons, and then there's the ones out on the corner there. In my research, they're called Patras plates. P-A-T-R-E-S-S. And what a Patras plate does is it's basically on the outside of a masonry wall, and then it has a tie rod so that it can tie and hold back the masonry wall to, in this case here, it's a timber frame structure on the main house. There's a fireplace on both sides. You know, when you're looking at brick, it's real easy to see, and it's probably more evident on the other side, but you know, when water hits the wall, hits the window, it comes down, and you can see it really concentrates off of the corners. Now, these are in pretty good shape, although this looks like it was probably touched up, as opposed to, you know, when I look at that mortar joint, the way it's struck versus the size of that mortar joint, you can see, and you know, they pack this in around the wood. So we're going to take a walk around the house. We're going to talk a little bit about you know, water management. I'll show you some things that I look for. We're obviously doing some work on this house. We're going to replace a bunch of the siding. You can see there's some of the bricks here that take on moisture and freeze and then spall. But if we come around the corner here, a couple things to notice. Notice that none of these clapboards are more than about 5 feet large, right? 5-6 feet. So these, I would guess, are probably original siding lap boards to the house, just given that they're not made in 12 or 10-foot lengths. They're the shorter. That's how it was done back then. You can see there's certainly some areas where the paint is coming through, but if we come over here, you can see there's definitely some failure. And you know, one of the things I love to do here is the key test. You know, that's actually pretty decent back in there, although that's building paper there, but it's pretty solid. This probably not so much. You can see I can push the key into the wall there. Now this here, this one's a pretty easy one to diagnose, because if I look at this problem and I follow it up, you can see what I see. I see a shed roof, no gutters, and no kick-out flashing. So that water is literally getting blown to the corner and then just falling off the wall and basically saturating this whole section of the wall. And if we come around to this side of the porch, you'll notice, again, you can see all the water management issues that this is having. And if I follow that up, it's pretty much the same issue there, where water just coming off, you know, water gets blown across that shed roof, gets stopped by the cheek walls, and so you accumulate a lot more water in those corners than you do, say, off of the face. And you know, someone's put the flashing in there to keep water from going inside, but you can see, and again, if we do our little test, you know, this is all pretty, like, I can stick my key in there, so it's failing the key test. But those are a couple areas on the back side. Let's take a walk around the front here. And it might be best if you just go around by the bushes. Although here, we can stop here. You know, corner boards, you can see there's a piece here. Obviously, this was a replacement. If I take this and peel it back, you can see it's pretty well rotted out, even though they replaced that piece below. But, you know, obviously you know, it's failing the key test there. So the windows themselves are in pretty decent shape, but these are some pretty beefy sills. And again, this is a timber frame, but again, you can see water accumulates, gets rained on, follows some of these vertical ridges down, and then the first sign where it hits and is forced to change direction is where the water gets soaked up. And so, yeah, again, you know, you can hang the keys on here. This thing is totally failing the key test, and it's failing it from both sides, right? So sometimes I bring a screwdriver, but so it looks good in some places, and then on this side you can just see they must have had some problems, but somebody went through a couple tubes of caulk to try and seal that up there. And then you can see, you know, I don't know if you understand why paint fails, but what happens here is water gets into the wall, right? I know people, they sit there and say, oh no, Steve, we put sealant under here and we seal it all up. Water doesn't get in there. Bull crap. Water gets in there, okay? Water gets behind the lap siding, and it always will. There's no barrier system here. Water gets back there, sun comes out, tries to dry out the wall, the moisture migrates to the surface. What's the first thing it battles? The paint film, right? So in some places, it might start as maybe a little bubble and then elevate to a larger crack, elevate to even larger crack, but then those blisters break and the moisture is released and it's able to dry, but hence you have a paint problem because the paint became the barrier, and it's basically a reverse barrier, right? You think you're painting it to keep the water out. The paint is actually keeping the water in. And when the wall goes to dry out, and that's why we always advocate for rain screens behind, because all of this drying on the paint job is now happening behind the board and being able to dry and ventilate inside of that wall system to basically save the wall. I know of a couple houses that we've done that are more than 20-year-old paint jobs that look basically brand new, like this board here, after 20 years. So coming down the wall here, you know, we can see, for those of you that have never seen it in New England, this is basically a boot scraper, right? So you basically put your boot on there, you come in from the field, working out on the farm, and you can scrape your boots. But again, here you can see everywhere that water comes down and then gets held on a horizontal plane, it gets challenged and it gets rotted. So all of those moldings are beautiful, they're fine, but you always have to make sure that they're shedding water. And you can see on this side here, I mean, that's pretty much all rotted out. And the problem with water management like that is the minute you get this condition, now you have water pouring in and it's rotting from the inside, right? Because you're saturating that whole wall system now, because that drip piece or that cap no longer exists on that wall. Let's take a walk around here. So we saw some interesting stuff at the corner here. So around the corner here, you can see we're back at another one of those brick gable ends. But before we go around there, I'm coming here, and a bunch of the stuff that we saw earlier, you can see, right? There's our key test failure there. It fails there, obviously, a whole bunch. And again, notice, water hits when it rains, wind drives it, it hits this edge, it gets soaked up, and this board wets from this joint that way, right? So as that moisture expands here, you have less and less moisture in the board. So that's why this is failing a lot more here, right, than here, right? So this is absolutely failing on that inside joint there and not failing out here. Notice also here where you have the electrical and some wires. Well, all of that vertical stuff grabs water. That water comes down, and where does it hit? That first flat surface, and look what it does. It just rots the hell out of everything in there. So when you're detailing a building, you have to kind of ask yourself, well, where does the water go, right? And then lastly, we can look on the wall here. Notice we got the pattress plates again. This has got a little bit of a bow to it. I'm wondering if, like, the house, the gravity load is exerting a pressure and bowing that out, or if some moisture got in there and froze and pushed the wall out at some point in time, and then it just kind of stabilized and said, okay, that's far enough. But call your attention to, look under the window, right? That's been patched. Under the window there, you can see there's some cracks. And even up above, you can see the patterns that come out of the corners. Those windows accumulate a larger amount of water than the wall does. It all goes down to the corner. So when you take a window like this and you say this area here versus this area is probably seeing 10x the amount of water that this sees, right? And because of that, and all that water accumulates and comes down here, then it starts getting soaked up by all of these joints. In the wintertime, it freezes, stuff cracks, and then we need that patch. The other thing I want to call your attention, because my son's behind the camera, but he's like, hey, this board's in pretty good shape. It is until you get down to the bottom. But the thing about this board is on the back side, it has the ability to dry out. So it's going to stay in pretty good shape, because it's not trying to just dry to the outside, it's drying to the inside and drying in that crack. But again, you can see all of the horizontal stuff here is, yeah, we're about due for some new work. It's pretty much a series of crumbs. So anyways, hopefully you enjoyed that. We'll keep you posted. We'll come back. We'll shoot some more videos here. Beautiful house. Tour the inside if you like old houses. Yeah, there's a bunch of things in there, you know, 210 years ago that maybe I'll put a little slideshow together at the end of this video, just showing you some of the stairways, floors, the tenons, and the way the stair was framed. So we can put that together, or I'll just make another video that's basically a slideshow and can show you a bunch of that stuff. So anyways, I'm Steve Basic Architect. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure you smash that subscribe button. And we're putting content. I try and put it up daily. Sometimes it's a challenge, but look for it, 6:30 a.m. Smash that subscribe button, tell all your friends, and until next time, long live our buildings.